Hey, thanks for making it to Veterans Info Tap. I'm glad you made it. Obviously, still going through a transition. It's going to be a little while as I try to work on the mess. I would show you, but it's pretty bad. So I got a lot of stuff to clean up here before I can get my new spot set up. And so the biggest issue, I think, is going to be the lighting aspect. So sorry for that. I'm trying to mess around with what I got. In any case, I came across an article on the budget and some information regarding the VA, and just wanted to give another perspective of information out there and information that's flying around, and maybe give my 2 cents here or there. So want to jump into it. Just going to read through it for you so you're up to speed with what's going on and what's being said. So we'll just start from the beginning. Hit the thumbs up for me. I appreciate it. All right. Veterans health care has become a bitterly contested front in the battle over raising the nation's borrowing limit, with both parties saying they are trying to protect funding and accusing the other of misleading voters. Democrats charge that Republicans' current offer on the table, a House bill that couples raising the debt ceiling with sharp cuts in spending, would eviscerate veterans' programs. Republican lawmakers angrily deny that. The heated rhetoric culminated this week with House Speaker Kevin McCarthy accusing the Biden administration of lying. The dispute springs from the vague nature of the GOP bill, which passed the House last month. The Limit Save Grow Act proposes cutting discretionary spending for fiscal year 2024, pushing this back to the 2022 levels at about $1.47 trillion. That works out to about an 8% reduction from this year, according to the nonpartisan Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget. But the bill doesn't lay out exactly how each federal agency or program would be funded or pared back within that framework. So in other words, the bill doesn't say who should be cut back. It's an overall cut. Then there has to be decisions made who stays whole, who's cut, or some cut more than others, and so forth. Democrats quickly jumped into the void, accusing Republicans of threatening a variety of veterans' benefits and health programs, including a law that passed last August with overwhelming bipartisan support, called the PACT Act. You may have heard of it. This law has been described by officials as the largest expansion of benefits in 3 decades, potentially benefiting 3.5 million veterans with lung issues, cancer, and other health conditions related to exposure to toxins while serving. In late April, the Secretary of the Department of Veterans Affairs held a breakfast meeting for the veteran service organizations and warned them of dire problems if the GOP proposal came to fruition, said Joe something, executive director of AMVETS, one of the big 6 veterans groups. The administration says that the Republican bill would reduce funding for veterans and other non-defense discretionary programs by 22%. That estimate is extrapolated from Republicans' contention that they won't reduce defense spending. So that's how they came up with that number. As we move on, it says here that that the defense spending makes up 52% of the discretionary budget, thus requiring deeper reductions in other areas of the federal budget to meet their savings goals. Assuming defense spending remains the same, non-defense discretionary spending under the Republican plan would total $586 billion, a 22% decrease from the current level of $756 billion, according to Shalanda Young, director of the Office of Management and Budget. House Republicans point out that there is no language in their bill to cut funding for veterans, although nothing in the legislative text explicitly protects it either. The lack of specificity, you know what I'm saying? The lack of it being specific, there, Marine Corps, enabled the party to put out a tough budgetary decision and wrangle the voters needed to pass the bill without any Democrat support. 217 to 215. Congress must reach a deal to raise the debt ceiling soon or risk a default by the federal government as soon as June 1st. That's around the corner, folks. It is May. So, important. So, Democrats have insisted on a clean debt limit increase with no conditions, but have said they are open to separate talks on taxes and spending. On Tuesday, following a meeting at the White House with Mr. McCarthy and other congressional leaders to discuss the debt ceiling, President Biden again signaled out veteran spending. He said the GOP proposal would lead to 30 million fewer outpatient appointments at the Department of Veterans Affairs hospitals, months after the VA's budget was increased to do just that. Mr. McCarthy said Democrats were peddling falsehoods and political advantage. Cutting the veterans is a lie, Mr. McCarthy said at a press conference, noting that the issue had come up in Tuesday's meeting, where the bill does not say we cut veterans. The Speaker stood by Republicans' plan to roll back discretionary spending to fiscal year 2022 levels, but he said the party would release a separate bill next week that would allot more money to veterans. Mr. Biden shot back Tuesday that he was aware Mr. McCarthy had used what he called the L word about Democrats, but repeated that the 22% figure. In remarks Wednesday, he accused Republicans of not being straight with the public. Anytime you single out the impact of their overall cuts, they tell you, no, it's not true, he said. Both parties talking points on veterans funding have been misleading, budget experts say. And I would agree with that. Democrats are attempting to make the cuts more specific by assuming hypothetical details, while Republicans are trying to avoid those details by keeping the specifics as vague as possible, said Maya McGinnis, president of the Bipartisan Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget. Ms. McGinnis said that messaging on both sides is unfair to voters. What we have is a political cage match where both sides are going to continue to pander instead of tell us the truth about the tough choices that will be required to fix the debt, she says. Veterans advocacy groups say they have received nothing in writing to back up Mr. Bost's pledge. So remember, Mr. Bost is the chairman of the House Committee on Veterans Affairs, and he pushed back on Democrats' characterization of the House bill, pledging that no veterans benefits will be cut at all in a video published on social media. We asked for language to be included to specifically protect veterans funding, said Allison Jalslaw, CEO of Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans of America, an advocacy group. If they want to give us guarantees, then put that language in a bill that will ensure that. Republican Representative Chip Roy, leading member of the ultra-conservative House Freedom Caucus defended the lack of carve-outs for defense and veterans funding. My view is that we wanted the top line cap, we wanted the top line cap on the spending because that's the responsible thing to do. That we should all get in the same room to figure out how we should allocate those discretionary funds, Mr. Roy said. AMVETS, Mr. Chenelly said that both Democrats and Republicans are politicizing veterans issues. Both said that the GOP will, with talk of budget cuts and no tangible promises to spare veterans funding, are concentrating or are concerning veterans the most. He said veterans groups are going to take Mr. Boasts at his word for now. We're going to stand by, he said, and the first time there's a hint that is not accurate, we will be in every hallway in Washington immediately. And that is how the article ends. So a little long. Sorry, it was a little choppy. It's a little bit bad lighting in here. But one of the things that's interesting here is just the back and forths of it all. But that there was the mention of additional funding for veterans and potentially next week. And I'm trying to go back to that. I'm going to cut this all out and put it in the comment section or the description. I'm not sure if it will all fit or not. I will try to put the link as well. But there was the part in there where Mr. McCarthy had stated that there was going to be, here it is. I'm going to reiterate it for those that still hung on. The Speaker stood by Republicans' plans to roll back discretionary spending to fiscal year 2022 levels, but he said the party would release a separate bill next week that would allot more money to veterans. That's huge. More money to veterans next week. So let's see what happens. All right. Thanks for watching. I appreciate you. And remember, if we don't take care of each other, something went wrong.